Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wednesday. It is so very good to see you. My name is Mark Dolfini, and you are here on the Business Plans 101 session. I am really excited to have you here. Please do me a favor. Please tell me who you are, where you're coming from. Well, when you write something, I'll know who you are. But go ahead and just type where you're coming from, what kind of business idea that you have, maybe what business that you're in, and really what you're hoping to get from today. I would love to know that. So go ahead and just get that in there as everybody's coming in. We have a lot to cover today, and I want to try to do this in about an hour. I want to answer any questions that you may have along the way. And the really cool thing is you're going to be getting a replay of this emailed to you directly. So I just want to make sure that you're clear of that. I always get those questions, and I'll say that a couple times because people always seem to ask along the way, will I get a replay of this? Because I have to hop off. I have to go pick up kids from school, or I have to go to bed, or in the middle of my workday, or whatever else it is. But in the United States, I know many of you have different things going on because it's right before Thanksgiving. So sorry, my nose is running, and I am hoping I am not getting sick because we just got through a bout of that. So hello, Natalie. If anyone here loves business, mindset, neuroscience, or just leveling up in life, connect with me on LinkedIn. Awesome, Natalie. I love that you're being proactive with your networking. Very good. I'm glad to have you here. So is that the world that you're in? Or do you work with folks in that field? It's business mindset, neuroscience. Is that what you do? Are you a business coach? Is that what you do? Love to hear about what it is that you're doing and maybe what you're trying to get from today. So please let us know. Let me know that. Before we get started, though, as you guys are typing that, just one quick thing I just want to throw out there. This session is about Business Plans 101, and we're going to be covering a lot of very strategic stuff. This is what business planning is it goes from strategic down to tactical. So we're going to be covering some tactical things, but this is really about taking the metaphorical planning table, right? The war table, right? The war planning table, and really just kind of figuring out what assets that you have and maybe what things that you need to put in your toolbox so you can have the best chance of success as you either roll out a new business, or if you have an existing business. A business plan is great for helping with going into a new market, or establishing a new product or new service, or even working with a new avatar. These are all things that are really helpful for business planning. So I'm just going to ask you a couple of quick things. Please don't multitask. I know we're here just for a short period of time. For the next 55 or so minutes, I'm going to be giving you some of my very best stuff. You're going to be getting a template on how to an actual business planning template that is for free. You don't have to pay anything for it. And I'm going to show you how to get that. And then I'll show you how to get that at the end, but I don't want you to multitask. I just want you to stay plugged in. You're going to train your brain for the next 55 minutes to stay plugged in and not multitask and not to get into various things. So just do me that favor. And then, like I said, if you have not mentioned already where you're from, let's see. Grace is from Las Vegas, finishing up my accounting degree. Awesome. My background, my degree is in accounting from Purdue. So good for you, Odin. I'm glad that you're. Oh, I'm sorry, Grace. Yes, Grace. Good for you. Seeking to establish a business in, is that posture consulting? Posture or pasture? I apologize if I can't read that. The font is like size 6, and my 53-year-old eyeballs can't read all those tiny things. So posture consulting. I'm not sure what that is. Natalie Wilson from the UK. Yes. A specialist certification. Good to see you again. In certification in neuroscience and counseling, psychology, but have a first-class business degree. Did a 2-year research project on business plan and employee motivation. Awesome. So I'd love to hear what your feedback is on this. Hopefully this is going to be helpful for you, Natalie. Thank you so much for joining us today. Ashkanch would love to connect with anyone passionate about business and personal growth. LinkedIn, excellent. I love you guys that are very proactive with your networking. I love that. Susan from Colorado. Hello, Susan. Let us know what line of work that you're in, Susan. Glad that you can join us. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Let me get to the plans up here. First and foremost, you are here to uncover Business Plans 101, and that is why you're here. You're in the right spot. So this is going to be about establishing a strategy for life and business. Now, I'm going to give you a formalized business plan, and there's a lot of reasons that you may want to have a business plan. That might be to attract investors. That might be to take it to a bank so you can get funding. That might just be get a little bit of clarity for yourself. All of those reasons are great reasons, but the thing is, understanding business plan first and foremost is taking a strategic approach to your business. What I'm going to show you is a methodology called the Viper methodology, which is going to take a strategic approach to both your life and your business. So it's going to wrap in elements of your life that a normal business plan do not do. But I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that because I'm not trying to dupe you into something that you don't need. But you do need to make sure that you're creating a business that exists for you rather than you just existing for a business that will never love you as much as you love it. So just want to make sure that I'm framing that right as you see this up front. So who is this going to be specifically for? This is either for new or established businesses. If this is a brand new business idea for you, this is going to be helpful for you. If you have an established business for you, this is going to be helpful for you, especially if you're going to be strategic planning as you head into 2026 and wrap up and put a bow on the fourth quarter and the year for 2025. So I have a strategic planning workshop that I do where it gets a little bit more granular on various things. So this is similar to that, but it's not exactly the same. But you can use business planning for that actual purpose, for strategically planning into the next quarter, the next year, or so forth. Or like I said, if you're if you're a new business, or let's say that you're launching a new product line, a new service line, you're heading into a new market entirely. These are all things that you can use a business plan for. So what I'm going to tell you at the end, if you go to strategicboardroom.com and you go to courses and logins, you can get a copy of the, you don't even have to enter an email address or anything like that. You just go to strategicboardroom.com, courses and logins, and you will get a copy of that at the end. You can get a copy of the, sorry, I'm trying to read too many things here. You go to strategicboardroom.com, go to courses and logins, scroll down a little bit. It's right under it's the first line under free courses. You just click that button and you can download the free template. But I will show you how to do that at the end because like I said, right now, just don't multitask. Just stay plugged in right now. Lexan, living in UK, but a Chinese national. Very good. Help client to source and sell in China. Excellent. What kind of stuff are you looking for? Is it just commodity type stuff, or what type of things are you selling, Lexan? Sachi, I am Sachi and I'm from California. I would love to connect with anyone. Excellent. Okay, very good. So glad you guys are connecting. Let's get to the meat and potatoes of today. So first, let's get to the agenda. First and foremost, we're going to be talking about the basic framework that I talked about, and this is the Viper methodology that I talked about. This is going to really help you put things in context. So when you're filling out your business plan, it's going to make a lot more sense. Otherwise, you're going to be, it's a little bit more difficult if you don't have context. The Viper framework will give you context. Okay. Engineered and consumer product. Very good. Excellent. The second thing is we're going to be talking about the people and the site. Basically, this is the psychology side of the business. So we're talking about the basic framework of the business, the systems and processes. And then the second part of that, we're talking about the psychology of the business. So this is the people, the lessons on leadership and management. That is going to be really important to identify in your business plan. And you might think, well, why would I need to identify the psychology side of business or the leadership or the management side? Because if you don't identify it up front, you're going to be flat-footed when you're building out all this infrastructure and you need people to run that infrastructure and run that stuff. And if you don't have leadership and management already thought of in place, then you're playing from behind. So you want to identify this stuff up front. Again, this is about being strategic. This isn't about doing like a onesie twosie thing. This is about doing something and then knowing what steps 4, 5, 6, and 7 are going to be right after that. Okay. So that's why we're thinking strategically. The 4 core functions of business, which are going to be true for every single business, and then how to scale this business now that we have this business plan in place. And then finally, the resources. Like I said, I'm going to show you how to download the plan specifically from strategicboardroom.com. Let's talk about the systems, right? So we talk systems first. Again, there's systems and psychology. So the systems piece is what I wrote about in the Time Wealthy Advantage. If you're overseas and you'd like to get a copy of the book, My suggestion, just go to Amazon. That's going to be your best bet. If you're in the United States, go to strategicboardroom.com. It's the first. You can just click on it, on the link, and buy it that way. That's probably the best way for you to get it, and I can sign it and send it to you. But I'm not here to sell the book. I'm here to talk about the Viper framework, which is in that book. So the vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. That's the acronym. That's what the acronym stands for. That's the Viper method. Vision, then infrastructure, then process, execution, and reporting. We're going to unpack each of these in order. So again, this is a top-down framework in terms of how you're going to organize your business and how you're going to organize your life around that business. And that's important. That's something that no business plan does. Business plan doesn't identify the human individual that's putting this plan together and how this business plan is supposed to serve you. Well, guess what? It is important. You do matter. And creating a life that exists to serve a business sucks. Ask me how I know. So this is where I want you to consider two things when you're considering vision. They're both personal vision and business vision. So let's unpack personal vision for just a hot second. Personal vision is where you want to go. It's where, Susan, it's where you want to go if your life wasn't defined by income generation. What would you do from a day-to-day basis if your life if you didn't have to worry about income generation, right? Same with you, Lex, and same with you, Sachi. Like, what would your life look like if you didn't have to worry about making money? The business vision, on the other hand, it says, cool, if that's where you want to go, let's reverse engineer how you want to get there. That's the business vision. And many times when I have conversations with business owners, many times when I have conversations with entrepreneurs, they're so business vision focused, they've never given any consideration at all to their personal vision. And the danger in that is that when you create a business vision, before you create a personal vision, is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. And I'm just telling you, that's an empty well that never gets filled in. Now, let me just press pause for just a second, because when in the early days of owning a business, owning or starting a business, sorry, I had something hop up on my computer. So the early days of starting a business, this is really important because yes, your whole life gets consumed by that thought of that business and by being an entrepreneur and and all these different ideas that you have. I get that. And I'm not here to tear those down. And in the early days, you do need to be consumed by it to a certain degree. But for what? The problem is many entrepreneurs, and I'm telling you this like based on personal experience and many experiences of people that I have worked with, hundreds and hundreds of different business owners that I have worked with, they all said the same thing, is that in the early days, because they were working so hard, they never removed themselves from the business. So as a result, they ended up creating a miserable job for themselves. So I'm just saying, start by right now creating a personal vision for yourself. And you do that. I think this is a great way to do this by creating a 100th birthday speech. Like, you're turning 100 years old. Who would you want to be in the room? What would you say? What is the message that you would want conveyed after you were done speaking? Right? They were like, oh my gosh, that was such a great thing that you said. And what would be the message that you would want people to carry outside the room? Now, let me just press pause again a second. You might say, dude, I'm 27 years old, 100 years from now. Like, are you kidding me? That doesn't make any sense. Or some people might even have that problem if they're 50 years old, right? I'm in my mid 50s, me thinking I'm turning 100 years old. I'm like, man, that's a long ways off. Okay, then think about the next milestone for you. Maybe you're turning 60, maybe you're turning 30, maybe your kids are turning 18, whatever. But take this time to go through this, because I'm just telling you, the rest of the time today, we're going to be talking about business plans and business vision and all that other stuff. But I'm just telling you right now, please don't skimp over this, because if you don't do this now, you're like, yeah, let me make 50 grand a month. Let me make 100 grand a month. And then I'll worry about that personal vision stuff. Okay. I'm just telling you, I've worked with, I count people that said the same thing and they never got there. And at the end of it, they wound up with marriages that were empty, kids that didn't know their parents, and people who had no relationships with anybody other than the people that they worked with. So I'm just saying, there's a better way. So some of you, may stick around and go, yeah, that's super squishy. I'm not doing that. Okay. That's up to you, man. I'm just telling you that this is the approach that I take, because personal vision, your business should exist to serve you, not the other way around. All right. Put the fries in the bag on that one. Personal vision. Now let's get to business vision. Again, the business vision exists to serve the personal vision, but the business vision has 3 components. And this is going to help you start to segment different things when you're starting to look at things like your marketing analysis, your segmentation analysis. There was someone who joined me last time I did this session. she was a marketing major, and she had heard a lot of these different things. And she's like, oh, is that like market analysis and segmentation analysis? I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what this is. But I break it down into 3 C's of business vision, which is core purpose, core values, and client avatar. And defining these things helps you define so many other things. So you can skip this if you want, but I'm just telling you, this really is foundational. So if you take the time and do the work where you're getting into core purpose, core values, and client avatar, this is going to make a huge difference for you. So let's go into core purpose first and foremost. Core purpose is specifically what business that you're in and what problems do you solve specifically. And it's important that you're specific. If you just, that's why I asked Lexon, what type of products are you talking about? Are you talking about sugar, or are you talking about highly engineered, consumer electronics? Either way is fine. But if you just say, well, anything, I'll just sell anything from China, that can be tricky, right? Because you're not dialing in specifically like, who are you going to sell all this stuff to? Well, anybody who wants to buy. And if you try to sell anything to anybody, you're going to wind up selling nothing to anybody, nothing to nobody, right? There's bad grammar there. But I'm just saying, this is why you got to get really dialed in your core purpose. If you're a realtor and you're like, yeah, I'll sell all sorts of real estate. But if you say, no, I'm a residential realtor and I sell properties on the south side of Miami, that makes a lot more sense than saying, I'm just going to be a realtor and I'll sell whatever. Okay, so it's really important that you get dialed into your core purpose. Me as a strategist, I'm a life and business strategist. I'm not a life coach. I'm not a business coach. I'm a strategist. I work with I really like working with people, and we're going to talk about this with the avatar, who are very specific, who are in a very specific niche. So, but understanding and making their life easy and educating these individuals is really what the foundation of what it is that I do. I just got off a call with one of the front desk people of this med spa, and did some sales training with her, and she super dialed in and got that. But I understood what her problem was, because I operate within four core functions of business, which is lead gen, sales, operations, accounting. We'll get to that here in a second, but understanding your core purpose is really critical. Then let's get to core values. Core values is what matters to you about this business, and how would the world be worse off if you are no longer in business? Let's face it, Susan, your business is just an extension of you. Right? Lexon, your business is just an extension of you. Like, there's no getting around that. And this is why, Natalie, when you're thinking, well, why should I take the time to define my core values? I know who I am. Yes. But the thing is, you're going to be bringing in other people into your organization that are going to be in alignment with your core values, ideally. Right. And I'm just saying, like, it is, this is the thing that is really important for you to stop and think about, like, well, why would I want to define that? Because if you don't define this, you may be attracting an avatar that don't align with your core values. And now you end up working for people that don't align with your core values, or you start to attract people who are vendors, or you start attracting subcontractors that don't align with your core values. And when you take the time to define these things, core values is what determines your company culture. And your company culture and your company brand are inextricably linked. That's really, really important, because if you have a strong company brand, that almost becomes its own form of marketing. So take the time to define your company core values, because I promise you they will come up later, especially as your organization grows. And for those of you who are trying to scale an organization, the only way to scale is by bringing in other people that are in alignment with your core values. That's the fastest way to grow. If you bring people who are misaligned, you're going to be dealing with a lot of other stuff just because there's a misalignment of core values. Lexon said, I forgot to mention it is targeted in SMEs. Oh, subject matter. I'm assuming that's subject matter experts, SMEs, for engineered product or parts for consumer product. I'm still looking for the direction, depending on what market opportunity brings. Understood. Very good. And that's totally fine. This is exactly why you get into business planning. Okay. So very, very good. So this is, again, we talk core purpose, we talk core values. Now let's talk about client avatar. Client avatar is who specifically and ideally do you want to serve? Small, medium. Okay, subject. Yeah, SMEs is also subject matter experts, but you said small and medium-sized companies, SMEs. Okay, that makes sense too. Okay, we're throwing out all this nomenclature. All right, so in terms of client avatar, who specifically and ideally do you want to serve? And what are their geographics, demographics, and psychographics? You really need to get really clear on this, because like I alluded to earlier, I have a specific avatar that I tend to attract. They tend to be married. They tend to have kids at home. They will have businesses of their own, right? They are super swamped busy. They tend to have faith in God, right? That's generally who I tend to attract. And it's not saying that I wouldn't work with people who aren't all check all those boxes, but the fewer boxes that they check, they tend to go, I'm kind of not in alignment, right? They tend to self-select, and that's okay. There are other people who go, dude, you are my tribe. I need to be part of, I need you to be part of it. And that's fine too. I'm just saying this is where when you identify your avatar, this is where you start to be a little magnetic. And magnets have two poles, right? Magnets attract. Man, I can't speak today. Magnets attract, but they also repel. So when you really identify who your client avatar is, you can attract who you want to work with and you can repel who you don't. And that's good. That's not a bad thing. That's when you try to be everything to everybody, you end up being nothing to nobody. So that's why this is important to identify your client avatar, who specifically you want to work with, just like Lexon. He wants to work with small, medium-sized companies. Now, to me, that seems like a very, very big audience. That seems like a very big target market, because small, medium-sized companies, based on whose standard? A small company, look, in the United States, based on census data, there's 32 million solopreneurs. They are single entity. They are non-owner. They are non-employer businesses. That means they are one person. Are you working with them? If you're working with people from 1 to 19 employees, there's 5.2 million of them, right? So it's like, okay, well, and that's a small entity. Or are you looking to go from 20 to 500, where there's about 700,000 of them? And then this is just based on the United States Census data back in, I think, 2022, 2023. So this is why it's important, like, for you to really get dialed in terms of who your avatar is, because I will tell you, a person who is running a business by themselves or who's running a business with 2 and 3 employees has vastly different problems than someone who's running a business with 23 employees or 43 employees or 500 employees. Very different. Okay, so I'm just saying this is why you got to get really dialed in terms of your avatar and know these people well. Know their geographics, their demographics, and their psychographics. Their geographics is straightforward. It's where they live, where they are. Their demographics is who they are, right? Are they married? Are they single? Do they employ people, right? Whatever. And what's their education level? What kind of money do they make? Those are all demographics. And then psychographics is how they think and how they buy, how they come to make buying decisions. That's really important. And when you're thinking about psychographics, I want you to think of the phrase ALIA, ALIA, and that's their attitudes, their lifestyles, their interests, and their aspirations and goals. When you know someone's goals, do you think it's a lot easier for you to help them? If you know, right, Natalie, if you knew someone's goals, do you think it'd be easier for you to help them, right? It's obvious, yes, because then you can help them get there. Now, you may not have the product or service for that, but at least you can help them in some particular way. And maybe if your product or service does align, even better. But think of their attitudes. Think of their attitudes on life. Think of their attitudes on politics, right? What are their lifestyles? Are they jet-setting youth, or are they older and kind of homebodies? What are their interests? What kind of things do they read? How do they spend their free time? What is interesting to them? And what are their aspirations and goals in life? These are the sorts of things that you really need to know about your avatar. So you might be thinking, okay, this sounds great in theory, but how do I actually do this? Look, the reality is you probably know someone who's already represents your avatar. It's probably some guy named Joe who's in your phone or on your Facebook page. And you're like, man, yeah, Joe really does represent my avatar. Well, don't go to Joe because you want to sell to him. Go to Joe as a source of information. Hey, Joe, can I ask you a couple questions? You represent my avatar who I would really like to work with. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I just want to ask some information from you. Like, hey, what kind of movies do you like? Well, what kind of, where do you get your news from? What kind of, like, do you read books? What do you do? Right? I mean, in everything that you can possibly know about Joe, chances are he's got some other interests that are probably in alignment with other similar avatar. So you can reach them in that way. Like, if you knew what magazine that he reads all the time, then you're like, okay, maybe it might make sense for me to reach a small to medium business enterprise like Lexon in in the Robb Report or in the Wall Street Journal or something along those lines, right? So this is where I'm starting to think, like, or I want you to start to think, this is how you can direct your marketing efforts so you can reach these people. Okay. I'm getting ahead of myself. But again, this is the 3 C's of business vision. And when you take time and really do your homework on your core purpose, your core values, and your client avatar, like I'm telling you, there's nothing that's going to be more powerful, because this is foundational for the rest of your business plan. Okay. So this is going to help you unpack a lot of things. So that is vision, personal vision, business vision. Let's talk infrastructure. Infrastructure is the bones of the business. It's the things like your desks, your chairs, your software, your websites, all of the bones of the business, the business framework, the architecture that makes up your business. And you do want to identify this somewhat. It's not really anything that you would identify in a business plan, but it's probably not a bad idea to start thinking of what infrastructure that you would need. Like I will tell you some basics that you absolutely do need is things like a CRM, right? Or a project management software or something along those lines that captures the information of your clients or your leads, because a business rises and falls on its ability to generate and maintain the leads in its organization. And if you don't have that, if you're trying to grow an organization and you don't have a CRM, and I don't care, a CRM can be really sophisticated, like a Salesforce type platform. It could be simpler, more like a SaaS platform, software as a service, like HubSpot, Pipedrive, things like that. Or it could be an Excel spreadsheet or the back of a paper towel. I don't care. You've got to have some way to make sure that you're tracking the conversations that you're having with people and how you're going to follow up with people after the fact, because it is not their job to follow up with you. It is your job to make sure that you stay relevant in their mind. So I'm just telling you, if you don't have that now and you're in business now, find a CRM that will work for you. I like Pipedrive. That's the one that I use. But, there's plenty of others out there. Many people like Go High Level. I'm not really a fan of it, but other people use that and other things that help keep in contact with the people that are in your atmosphere. So that's infrastructure. And why does vision come first? Vision comes first because you're going to build an infrastructure that's in alignment with that vision, right? Let's say if Natalie, I'm going to answer your question here in a second, Natalie, but let's say that if Natalie's vision is to lay on the beach in Spain for 2 months out of the year, rubbing cocoa butter on her belly, right? That's a fine vision, but I'm just saying, like, if she develops an infrastructure that requires her to return emails and phone calls in a timely manner, that may be a horrible experience for her when she's trying to lay on the beach, for 2 months out of the year, rubbing cocoa butter on her belly, right? So you want to have that vision first and then develop infrastructure that is in alignment with that vision. A couple questions. I struggle to differentiate between my personal brand and my business brand. I have a following on social media personally. That's going to be a problem for you, Natalie. And I'm just going to be honest with you, because let me say it this way. If who you are on social media has absolutely nothing to do with what you do in business, and let's say that for argument's sake that you sell tanks, like armored tanks to different militaries across the world, right? And that's your job, right? And you're like, that has nothing to do at all with your social media presence, right? And there's no buyers that are going to be on social media that are going to buy tanks that are also going to be on Facebook that are going to follow you. Okay. Then that might make sense for you. Like your personal brand and your business brand may be two completely and totally different things. I know plenty of people who do that, right? They have a very different presence on social media because it's not who they are, right? Because their avatar doesn't live on social media. It's a problem for you if your avatar does exist on social media and you're going to be using social media as that outlet or as a method of lead generation. So for you, this is where you start to align your personal brand and your business brand. Now I do that pretty well, but it took me a while to get there. I don't post nothing but business on my page. I post a lot of pithy, kind of sarcastic stuff, just fun stuff. I post stuff of my bride and my kids sometimes, but I also post stuff that's really relevant to what it is that I do as a strategist. And because people know me as that, like that's what they've come to know me for. And this is outside of the scope of what I'm talking about today, but you want to own the mental real estate of the people in your tribe. And this was interesting. There was a guy, I'm going to change the name. Okay. But this person had a really solid brand, had a really, like, they like owned this, almost a color, right? It was like yellow. And so it was like, and like was that like they had a yellow color that was really tied to their brand, and they were really known in this area for real estate, right? And it wasn't my area, it wasn't my immediate area, but they knew themselves as it was like uh rental. I'm making this up because I want to change the name, but it was like rental guy rich. Rental guy rich. Okay. So rental guy, he had a bunch of rentals and he was really known for that. Like that was his thing. Like he was really known for that. And he owned the color yellow, really had a great brand. And then all of a sudden, Rich on his page started selling some sort of herbal supplements on his page. And I was like, what are you doing? You're selling me some mushroom coffee for $13 and you've just completely destroyed your brand. So I'm telling you, like, that made zero sense to me. No sense at all, because I was massively confused. I thought someone hijacked his page. I really did. So this rich guy, right? This rental guy, Rich, he completely destroyed his brand overnight, because in my mind, the mental real estate that he had in my mind was he was the rental guy Rich. Okay. So this is where you've got to be careful about the space that you occupy. So if you're saying you're struggle to differentiate between the two, then maybe my question to you is, does your avatar even exist on social media? And if they do, then you can find clever ways to connect the two. But I'm just telling you, that takes consistency. So beyond the scope of what we're really talking about today, but I hope that helps a little bit. Do you focus on personal branding or on business? So personal, I don't make a distinction between the two, right? Because I think for me, people who know me, many people know me as a real estate guy, because most of my money comes in from real estate, and most of my people locally know me as real estate. But people who've met me as a strategist, they only know me as a strategist, right? And that population is significantly larger than people who know me as a local real estate guy. So I'm just saying that does take time. So I do think that a personal brand and a business brand can be linked, but you've got to be careful with that, though. And this is why. Because Natalie, if you're creating a business that at some point you want to sell, like if you're calling it Natalie Wilson's, dog grooming shop, good luck trying to sell that to anybody else not named Natalie Wilson. Make sense? So I'm just saying, like, you've got to be careful with it. That's a whole other discussion. But the personal branding and business branding, there's a dance there. And I think that when you do this the right way, you can link the person to the brand, but you can also, like for me, I have other people who are helping me out with Strategic Boardroom. But right now, I love to teach and I love to coach. Will I have other people doing that at some point in time? Maybe. I don't know. That's not in my vision right now. But I'm just saying, like, Strategic Boardroom right now is Mark Dolfini. And Mark Dolfini is Strategic Boardroom. And I'm okay with that, right? Because, I make my money in other places. So it just depends on what your ultimate strategic direction that you're trying to go in, if you are going to try to sell this business in the future. So I hope that's helpful. But let's get back to the Viper framework. So we talked about vision, we talked about infrastructure. Let's talk about process. Process is simply how you do stuff. All right. Now, there's two components to process. There's tactical and there is strategic. When it comes to tactical day-to-day stuff, I really want you to think about this, that there probably isn't going to be much tactical stuff that you're going to be talking about in your business plan. But I'm just going to go through this really quickly so you understand the difference between tactical and strategic. Tactical is what you do from day to day, right? It's how you do stuff from day to day. It's your standard operating procedures. It's your checklist items. It's your day-to-day activities. That's your process. That's your tactical day-to-day process. It's how you answer the phone. It's how you prepare bank deposits. It's your opening procedures. It's your closing procedures. It's all of those things that you put together that you're doing from a day-to-day perspective. That's your tactical process. If I put a box around infrastructure and tactical process, that is what encompasses the business system, is the infrastructure and the tactical day-to-day process. That's it. The system is not more complex than that. So let's look at process from a strategic planning perspective. Strategic planning is really important because what that does is it gives your system legs. It gives it legs to run. So in other words, let's say the system, the infrastructure and the process is like a battleship or like a warship that's sitting in a harbor. The strategic planning is saying, hey, let's take this boat out of the harbor and let's go make some trouble. Let's go out and get into the world, right? That's what strategic planning does. So without strategic planning, all you do is operate based on whatever gets thrown at you every single day, right? If you don't have a strategic plan about where you're strategically trying to go this business or take this business, you're just going to get blown around by the winds of economic reality. And that's just the way it works. So you got to be strategic in your process and in your planning. And that takes three components. That takes people, purpose, and promotion. When you're thinking about your strategic planning, it's absolutely going to involve other people. Why is that? Because you are only one person. And here's the struggle that I see most business owners, most entrepreneurs have, is that they tend to be very creative people. That's great. They tend to be very smart, and they tend to be very hardworking, right? And the problem with that is they tend to be really smart and they tend to be really hardworking. And you're thinking, well, why is that a problem? Well, the problem is they lack discernment. Is that because you're smart, you think that every problem that comes across your desk is your problem to solve. And that is not true. That's not the best use of your time. That's where you start to bring in other people that can help solve problems for you. So that's the one side of the equation. And the other side of the equation is that because you're really hardworking and you have a really good work ethic, you'll work 20 hours on a problem that really wasn't even your problem to begin with. So that's been the problem, is that people who are really, have a really good work ethic and really, and are really smart, this is where you need to have some discernment in terms of what problems are really problems for you to solve. And this is why you need other people. So again, when we start to talk about the 4 core functions of business, lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting, you might recognize that there's just certain things that you're just not good at and you just don't have the time to do, because you're not going to be able to do all 4 very well, because you're going to get constrained in capacity. You're only one person. You can only do one thing at a time. So when you start bringing other people into your organization, whether that's an employee or a contractor or a subcontractor, now you can get multiple things done at a time. And that's where the people component comes in. So start thinking about not how do I get this done, but who can I hire to get that thing done? So I'll get to your 1 second, Natalie. You have another question. So the purpose is what specific strategic purpose are you doing? Now, again, the strategic purpose should be in alignment with what? It should be in alignment with your core purpose, right? And the core purpose comes from your business vision that we talked about in the vision component. So this is important because you don't want to have a misalignment of your strategic purpose and your core purpose. Why? It would be like, Starbucks starts selling chainsaws, right? Starbucks is a coffee company. You're like, yeah, but we can make money selling chainsaws. You're like, yeah, but it's weird. Like, that's not what people are coming here for. Why am I buying a chainsaw at Starbucks? It's weird. It doesn't make any sense. So the purpose would be, are you entering into a new market? Are you launching a new product or service? Are you trying to expand market share? Whatever it is, it's really important that you're really clear on what your strategic purpose is. So the next piece is promotion. Promotion is letting people know what you're doing, right? Externally and internally. So externally is through your marketing, your lead generation, your networking, all of those things that promote that. And internally, it's you saying to your internal people, probably a lot, often, right? Where you're saying, hey, this is what we're doing. This is the plan. Keep going. You're communicating and promoting the idea, always externally and always internally. And that promotion piece just cannot stop. Like, it just doesn't ever end. I mean, if you've raised teenagers where you feel like you're saying a lot of the same things over and over again, it's kind of the same thing. So I'm just saying the people, purpose, and promotion are the 3 main elements of strategic planning. So that is process, that is tactical, and strategic. Let's get to execution. Execution, again, is probably not something that you're going to list in your business plan, but it is worthy of at least acknowledging. A good plan violently executed now is better than the perfect plan executed next week, is a great quote by General George S. Patton, who was an American general in World War II. And that's the whole point, is the fact is that most plans fall apart in their execution. So it's not like waiting for things to be perfect. Sometimes you just have to execute. And most of the time, the reason why they fall apart in execution is because people are focusing on way too many things. You try to catch 2 rabbits, you don't end up catching either one. And the problem is there's too many priorities, and having too many priorities has the same impact as having no priorities. So this is where you want to boil down your execution activities into what I refer to as a daily 5. Your daily 5 are up to, pay attention, up to 5 highly specific actions that you can take that will move the needle towards your vision or your strategic plan, one of the two. And now I mean, like, so for those of you who have a daily 37 of your to-do items, right? Right? If you know who you are, if I had 3 hands, I'd put them all up because that was me for a long time. This is where you get really clear on up to 5 very highly specific things that you're going to do that will move the needle towards your vision or your strategic plan, one of the two. So that's what I'm saying. It's not, for me, I like 3. I like 3 things. Well, guess what? If I'm doing lead generation, and if you are in a growing endeavor, if you're trying to grow your business organization or business or organization, you're going to be spending a lot of time on lead generation. 60 to 70% of your daily activities are going to be around lead generation. So you're going to have a lot of lead generation activities in your daily 5. And that's, guess what? Like, this for me is part of lead generation. This for me is part of my daily 5, right? Daily 3, but you get my point. So I'm just saying, make sure that they are highly specific actions. Things like check email or check voicemail. They are not specific enough. You need to be really specific in your execution. Is this making sense? Let me know if, no, you're totally fine, Natalie. Don't apologize for the questions. Let me get to yours before we head into reporting. So I was a homeless teen mom. Oh my gosh. Good for you for getting on the other side of that. I became a certified scientist and award-winning entrepreneur. People knew you for it. Okay, excellent. That's great, Natalie. And if you're doing something different now, that's totally fine. Listen, I'll share you something with you that I'm not going to get into the details because you can find it on Google, but I really don't, that's not why I'm saying that. I'm saying, like, I did something that got literal, like, worldwide acclaim. And it got a lot of positive press. It's not really what I want to be known for anymore. And I'm not getting into specifics because I don't want to attract attention to me like that. But I got known for that. And many of the people who are on my Facebook page, they send me a friend request to go, is this story really true? Like, did you really do this? And I was like, yeah, it really was. Thanks so much. And whatever. And I'm being vague on purpose. But the reason why, there's a lot of people who knew me for that, but it's not, they're attaching like forever I will occupy that in their mind. But there's other people that need to know your story, that you're doing something more, that you've risen above. So I think that's still part of the story. If that's part of your story, that's fine, but that's not who you are. That might've been who you were, but it certainly isn't who you are. So congratulations to get on the other side of this. And you should be absolutely proud of yourself. And if nothing else, I'm proud of you for being on the other side of that. Good for you. I tried to change it to a business branding, but people on it knew me better. Well, listen, there's no difference than you just saying, hey, this is what I'm doing now. Right. So, if you're doing something and you're shifting your interests, listen, I'm all about reinvention, right? Like right now I'm growing a beard. I am not a beard guy. I have never had facial hair this long on my face ever in my life. My bride, she says, how would you look like with a beard? I'm like, I don't know. Do you want me to grow one? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, I hated it. So she got me some beard oil, and it's like, I'm still not loving it. I mean, I think it makes me look really old, but this is about constant reinvention. Look, you had to reinvent yourself as a teen mom, right? And you did. And all of you on here are going from periods of reinvention to bringing that in as a new normal to other reinvention. The minute you stop reinventing yourself is when you just may as well go ahead and start digging a grave. So again, I'm constantly reinventing myself but I'm doing that based on a set of core values around who I am. And because my core values are so strong, and that's based in my faith. So not to throw religion in you, but I'm just saying, like, for me, that's how I know that anytime I reinvent myself, I know it's on an established set of core principles and core values of who I am as an individual. So that's why I'm able to reinvent myself with confidence. So I would invite you to embrace that as well, because chances are you're probably going to reinvent yourself probably a handful of times over and over and over. And you probably reinvented yourself many times since being a mom and all these other things, right? So good for you. All right. Thank you so much. You are more than welcome. All right. So let's get to R, which is reporting, which is the last component of the Viper methodology. So when you're looking at lead metrics and lag metrics, those are the pieces that are actually what you're tracking. So lead metrics are just based on your actions and activities. actions and activities, and your lag metrics are the results of those actions and activities. So the results, you don't have any control over the results, but you do have control over your lead metrics. You do have control over your actions and activities. So guess what? If you're not getting the results you want, what do? Do you change the standard? No. You change the result. You change you can't change the results, but you can change your actions and activities. It's just that simple. So again, generally, if you have roughly 1,000 data points that says, hey, look, I'm not getting the results that I'm wanting, that's generally this minimum standard to say, all right, maybe I need to do something a little different. And that's how you know you're going to start to generate different metrics. Okay. So that is everything around the Viper methodology, the Viper framework that was written in the Time Wealthy Advantage. Let's get to the psychology. And this is about leadership and it's about management. So the psychology side of business, look, the systems are important, but the systems are only going to get you so far. And they offer stability. Systems offer consistency and accountability, but they are limited. They don't make subjective decisions very well. They don't adapt well to rapid market changes. Coming up with creative solutions isn't really a strong thing of systems, which is on purpose, right? And even establishing and maintaining human connections. Now, AI does have a component in this, but listen, I mean, think about it. How do you guys feel when I use your name on this webinar? You feel good, right? Because it's a human thing. It's a human connection. And that's why, again, I just feel like human-to-human connection. I think AI absolutely has a role, but the minute you're trying to substitute that for actual human connection and human authenticity, I think people, if they rely on that too much, it's going to fall short. So this is why psychology is so important. And when you're thinking of business psychology, or from that side of things, when you're talking psychology, there's the individual and personal component to psychology, and there's the organizational and business side of psychology. So when you're looking at the personal side, you're thinking of things like self-worth, self-management, self-leadership, limiting beliefs, just all the individual head trash that we carry around with ourselves, each day. From a business and organizational psychology perspective, it's things related to external psychology and internal psychology. So let's look at the business psychology from external and internal perspective. From external perspective, you're looking at things like buying psychology, and even things with like vendors and vendor negotiations, even things like politics do show up in business psychology. When you're thinking of internal psychology, you're thinking of things like management and leadership, and all of those things are really, really important. And now, again, this whole framework here is all around business planning, right? And business plans and what you're going to be putting on business plans. All of this and how you're going to identify your buyers and how you're going to manage buying psychology and what is the buying psychology showing you that there's a need for in the market. All of that stuff is really important. But let me talk specifically around leadership just for a hot second, because the way that I'm looking at leadership, and this is really important, because if you are going to someone specifically for funding, right? You're going to an angel investor, you're going to a bank, you're going to an investor, whatever, and you're not demonstrating good leadership, they're not going to say yes to you, even if they think the business has legs, even if they think the business idea is a good one, because it's the individual that's going to make the difference, right? So I want you to think about this. Like, look at these three main pillars of leadership, which is around trust, vision, and communication. And I have gone back and forth on this, trying to poke holes and trying to find, is there a fourth one? Is there a fifth one? Are they just two? No, it comes down to three main areas of leadership, which is around trust, developing and maintaining trust, and creating a shared vision, and communicating well and often. And around those three areas, if there's a leader that falls short in any one of these areas, they are not going to be effective as a leader. It's just the way it is. So, you might be thinking, well, does leadership really matter that much? It really absolutely matters. Right now, I'm writing my 9th book, which is called Leader Boss. And that is going to be on the premise of both caring and candor. And for those of you who are already employers, you know what I'm about to say. If you're too caring, you're going to feel like man, my employees take advantage of me, right? It's because you're too caring and don't have enough candor. When you have candor without caring, they're going to view you as a tyrant. And they're not going to do any more than what you ask them to do. They might show up on time, and boy, but I'm telling you what, right at the end of the day, they are out there with not one more minute to spare, right? They are not going to do any discretionary effort at all, because they're just going to do the minimum required and not much more. So when you have a good balance of caring and candor, it's demonstrating that you care about them, but also be willing to have tough conversations when it's necessary. That is the foundation of being a good leader boss. So that's really what I'm talking about that in that aspect. So Jim Collins, who wrote books like Good to Great, Great by Choice, Built to Last, excellent author, very well researched books. He references something called a level 5 leader. And a level 5 leader is someone who really has elevated themselves to a um, very high status among the people that work under him, right? So these people really hold them in high regard, and they're highly, highly effective. And he recognized that given these traits of a level 5 leader, the companies were significantly more profitable. They grew much faster. They had a much stronger company culture. And guess what else they had? They had a defined set of core values. Gosh darn it, here it comes again. It comes around again. Core values, right? Core purpose, core values, client avatar. So I'm just telling you that, like, if you don't feel that you're much of a leader, if you feel like you're kind of a micromanager, look, start leaning into your own leadership training. I do some leadership training, but look for everybody. Look for all the authors that are writing on leadership, and there's plenty of them. But don't just look at one area and think that, oh, I've got my leadership thing on lock. I think I'm a much better leader than I am a manager. And I will tell you, 5 years ago, I wasn't much of a manager, but I was still a better manager than a leader. And 5 years from now, I'm going to be a rock star leader, and I'm still going to have more to grow. So I'm just telling you, I don't think leadership ever ends, and I don't think the learning of it ever stops. So just to make a quick point about the growth, these are American companies, Amgen, Intel, Microsoft, and Southwest Airlines. If you look at the growth, just look at the market number. This was a period over 30 years. Amgen grew 25 times more than the stock market. Intel 20 times, Microsoft 56 times. Southwest Airlines grew 63 times more than the market, and 550 times in the entire airline industry. That's crazy growth, right? It's because they had rock solid, rock star leaders, and that really knew how to lead. And many of them were servant leaders. So oftentimes the 100 best places to work, the list that's created, Forbes and plenty of other places have these lists, but they frequently represent the highest stock return. So I'm saying if you're trying to put together a company, you have to address leadership. And I would really recommend that you find a spot in your in your business plan to really address the leadership and how not only are you going to structure it, but what type of leadership are you looking for? And I really want to encourage you to lean into servant leadership, because I'm telling you that that's the type of leadership that most of these companies tend to do really, really well with. So leadership obviously makes a huge difference. And the reality is that growth requires change, and leadership is what manages that change. So I just want you to think about this last point on leadership, is that the speed of the leader is the speed of the team. So if you're a type of person that takes forever to make decisions, right, you may have to set that aside or get other people in there to be the leader of this organization, because your ability to adapt to change is really important. Because if you take forever to make decisions, your people they're waiting on you. And that's never a good spot for a leader to be in. It's certainly not a good spot for an organization to be in. And again, a business needs to evolve and needs to continue to grow and change, because the market is continually changing. All right. So that is the people and the psychology side of the business. Let's look at the 4 core functions, which is and this is true in every single business. Every business has to have lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. And I'm just letting you know that your customer's journey through your company happens in that order: lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. So please take the time to consider how your customers are going through your organization from a lead generation perspective, letting the world know that what it is that you do, all of the different things that you need to be paying attention to that's going to attract people. Sales is what's going to close the loop on those conversations, right? So what kind of sales machine are you going to have? The operational function is obviously the fulfillment function. Then finally, the accounting and finance function, right? And if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. And that's really a critical component. And unfortunately, most people spend way too much time on a business plan only looking at the numbers. So you really got to make sure that you got all 4 of these areas defined, because if your lead generation and sales functions are not operating simpatico, If they're not operating in union, you're not going to execute well. It just won't happen, right? Or if there's a breakdown from sales to accounting or from sales to operations, that's going to be a problem as well, right? So just saying, start to think about these things now. So that's the 4 core functions. Let's get into the scaling side of things, right? Where this is where you're actually going to take the time and really dial into your lead generation. And lead generation is where you start targeting your client avatar. Where have you heard that before? That's right, your 3 C's of business vision, right? So again, we talked about the 3 C's of business vision: your core purpose, your core values, your client avatar, and they keep coming back around like a bad penny. Although all the pennies are being stopped performing. I don't think they make do they make pennies in the UK anymore? We're stopping this year. This is the last year in the United States for pennies. Anyway, so the targeting your client avatar is a big deal. So making sure this is what your lead generation is for. And when you target your client avatar, it's because you know exactly who you want to work with. It's much easier for you to direct your marketing towards. And these are the clients with the most amount of money, bringing you the least amount of drama. And I'm telling you that if once you've identified your client avatar in your target audience, it makes it much easier for any investor that's maybe looking at investing in your company. You go, oh yeah, that makes total sense, right? Or they go, huh, that seems like a pretty broad audience. Kind of like what we were talking about before with the people buying from China, right? That seems like a very broad audience. So I'm just saying, like, think about this when you're defining your client avatar. So the next piece here is, this is something I'm going to take myself off screen here so you can see this. Slide. Come back, go back. Okay. So I'm just going to take myself off the screen here, because what I want you to do is take a screenshot of this and really consider the 15 reasons why people buy. Now, this will help you get really clear on your product offering. It'll also help you get really clear in how you can help your ideal client avatar. These are the 15 reasons why people buy. And what I want you to do, I want you to think about, well, first of all, they're to make money, save time, avoid effort, escaping pain, right? And escaping pain is not just physical pain, it's emotional pain. It could be, spiritual pain. More comfort, better health could be the form of less stress, to feel more love, gain praise, increase their status. People will buy for truth, and they will buy for truth, especially if they have felt lied to in the past. That is really important. So think weight loss products, think politics. Like, people buy for truth all the time. They will buy for growth, especially, if they can grow in their knowledge, they can grow in their faith, right? And they might grow in their muscles or wellness. They'll buy just because something is new. It's a new approach to something. They'll buy to be more control, or more perceived control, more certainty, and also to be in contribution to others. So yes, I know some of you might have to hop off at the top of the hour. Yes, this recording will be sent to you in your email. So what I want you to do is I want you to take this list. Okay, now that you've got this list, what I want you to do is I want you to take this list, and I want you to think of all the ways, directly or indirectly, why or how you can help someone make money. So Natalie, what are all the ways, directly or indirectly, that you could help someone make money? Right? Lexan, what are all the ways, directly or indirectly, that you might help someone save money? Right? Sachi, Lexan, what are all the ways? Susan, what are all the ways, directly or indirectly, that you can help someone save time, avoid effort, or escaping pain? Right? And I want you to come up with as many reasons, directly or indirectly, how you help them do each one of these 15 things. So if you come up with, say, 10 things under each of these 15 ways that you can help people, now you're starting to differentiate yourself. Now you're creating a competitive advantage, because if you only have one thing that you can help people with, you're a one-trick pony, and you are massively susceptible to competition. So I'm just telling you, like, you don't want to be vulnerable to competition because you only solve one problem one way. So this is how you can get really creative in not only your marketing, but also your outreach and your differentiation with your client avatar. So take that time and do that exercise. When you're looking at this, I just want to make this one point, is that when it comes to lead generation, everything needs to support your lead generation function. And the reality is, because you can have the best, most efficient business, you can be a paragon of virtue, you can be able to sell ice to Eskimos and voting booths to Castro, and you can still starve. That's the truth. So everything rises and falls on your ability to generate and create leads for your company. And that's why you can never, ever take your foot off the gas when it comes to lead generation. So, around lead generation activities, if you are looking to grow your business, it's going to be 60 to 70% of your daily activities. So if you're working that day and you're working a 10-hour day, 6 to 7 hours out of that day needs to be towards lead generation activities. I'm just telling you that's the truth, especially if you're trying to grow your business. So, and all of this precedes the selling conversation, which just continues the lead gen conversation, right? You open up the conversation in the customer's mind with lead generation, and that loop is closed in sales. So just understand too, is that effective selling is not about holding people's heads underwater until they say yes. This is about finding solutions for them that are in alignment with your core values and your core purpose. Bertha says, I want to ask, what do you think about religious or a spiritual business these days? So I think, Bertha, you have to meet people where you're at. Okay. So I've been open on this call about my faith, right? So my faith is a big deal for me. I think, and I'm going to be honest about this, I don't think it should be used in marketing. That's my personal preference. When someone hands me a business card and it's got some sort of scripture reference on there, I am always leaning a little bit back. I'm not going to lie. That's just the way it is. And it's just because I've had negative experiences with many people who tend to feel like they need to lean on scripture references as if it's some sort of trustworthy thing. I would much rather judge you on your behavior. I see other people do it. They do it well. They lead with that. And I think that's amazing for them. It's just not a fit for me. But that said, I don't generally work with people who don't have faith, right? So you're asking me specifically about faith in God. Yes. Now I'm a Christian, but if your faith in a different God is your faith, and I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong, because in my mind, that this is my truth and that is your truth. And I'm not going to tell you you're wrong on that. But I do think that leading that and you relying on that for lead generation, in my opinion, it's not a good fit for me. But if it's a good fit for you, Bertha, then by all means, I'm not going to tell you to stop. So that's just me. So please don't let that influence if you're doing something different, but you're asking the question, and I think it was a really good question. So thank you for asking that. So the next piece here, hopefully that's helpful. So the next piece here is operational functions. So if you're going to get stuck, you're going to get stuck in the operational function. And that's just because you end up doing the thing that the business is around. Like if you're a roofer, you tend to do roofing. If you're a baker, you tend to do baking, blah, 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 right? And that's generally where people tend to get stuck. If you're going to ignore something, tell me if I'm right, Susan. If you're going to ignore something, generally it's the accounting function that gets ignored. And it sounds something like this. And keep in mind, I have an accounting degree, and I've said this. Well, I've got more money in my bank account this month than last month. I must be doing okay. Right? Well, that's crazy, right? That's why the accounting function cannot be ignored, because you can't make big strategic decisions. And it's really difficult if you don't know your numbers. So the accounting function. Now, I just want to ask you a quick question. Are all of these 4 functions the same skill set? No, they're not the same skill set, because they're 4 very different areas of business, right? Your lead generation, your sales, your operations, your activity, your accounting, they're all different activities. So when you are bringing more people into your organization, you're going to be bringing in, whether they're subcontractors or not, they're all going to be in alignment with your core values. And that is why it's important to define your core values. Here comes again, right? Core purpose, core values, client avatar. That's why when you're hiring people, you're bringing people in around a defined set of core values. And then, like I said earlier, your core values is what defines your company culture, and the company culture and the company brand have an inextricable link. And I just want you to think about that. Like, think about what well-known companies like KLM and Qantas and, British Airways, who have very strong company cultures. Here in America, we have Chick-fil-A, we have Starbucks, right? Target, they have very strong company cultures, and the brand and the culture are inextricably linked. So I just want you to spend time doing that. And again, when you have a defined set of core values is what's going to help create unity and vision, whatever vision and what mission that you have in that organization is going to thrive in an environment of unity. So let's get to that last piece here. We're actually going to talk about the actual business plan, and then we're going to put the fries in the bag today. Natalie says, honestly, Mark, thank you so much for tonight's webinar. You have given me so much motivation to move forward and use the past as my strength and as a weakness. Listen, Natalie, that is the truth for all of us. And you should be 100% proud of yourself for being a single mom who was homeless and doing what she could do to get by, I give you tons of credit. So keep at it. And that's where your mess becomes your message. And it's the same for all of us. So keep hanging in there. Bertha said, thank you, Mark. Very helpful. Okay, very good. Yep, glad that was helpful for you, Bertha. Well, let's get to that last component here, which is the business plan. And that's setting you up for success beyond today. So when you get to the business plan, now I'm just going to give you an overview, and then I'm going to show you. I'm going to hop on the website, and I'll show you how you can get a free copy of this. You don't even have to enter your email address. You can just download it straight from the website. But the business plan specifically is around industry, your product or service, the target market specifically, the demographics and the market size, your competition. It's also going to be broken down into marketing strategy, critical risks, what's known as a SWOT analysis. This is your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And then finally, the financial component and the metrics and milestones. So when you go to strategicboardroom.com, okay, so let me show you here real quick on how to do this. I've actually got the slides set up on my screen. So I'm going to get my giant dome out of the way here. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to strategicboardroom.com. And this is what the website looks like as of right now. So for those of you who want to buy, if you see my little arrow there, you're going to click on that if you're in the United States and you want to buy a copy of the Time Wealthy Advantage. You can click on that and I can sign it and send it out to you. If you're overseas, just buy it through Amazon if you're really interested. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to courses and logins right up top. You see where that circle is up on the top right? Okay, that's where you're going to go. And once you click on that, you're going to arrow down until you see the free 9-step business plan template. That's it right under the free courses and downloads. And that's pretty much it right there. All you got to do is click on that and it'll download right to where you're at. All right, so that is all I have on that component. I do have if you're a Facebook kind of person and you would like to join my group, I don't blow you guys up. And this is the link right here if you're interested. So there's that. And again, just don't be a jerk. If you're a jerk, we don't like jerks. So don't be a jerk. If you're like, yep, I know I'm a jerk, don't come, because we boot people who are jerks. And it even asks you if you're a jerk. I came late and forgot your name. Sorry about that. Oh, it's okay. My name's Mark Dolfini. So that is all that I have for you guys today. This is what the page looks like if you go to that, and you can see that right there. So that's everything that I have, everybody. If you guys are, again, if you want to go on that and you can follow me there, I really appreciate this. And I really appreciate how engaged you guys were. And I just want to encourage you guys. This is a lot. There's a lot of work to do. And the business plan template will also guide you through certain things on there about different aspects of the business plan. And what I helped you do with the Viper methodology and the trust, vision, and communication part of the leadership, the leadership model, those two areas should really give you a lot of the answers to a lot of your questions. And I really want you to think about, take the time to go through your business plan. And I really want to encourage you guys. So keep at it. Congratulations to you on your business. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day. Happy to, Lexan. You're more than welcome. Very good, Grace.